In today's video we're going to be installing the turbo setup on the Big Power D22. This is the OEM D22 manifold. They're a log style manifold. They don't flow the best. We've made a 4:1 merge collector style manifold. This will flow way better than the standard. We've also put V-band fittings for the turbo and the wastegate. That makes it a lot easier for working on the car. And to help with heat, we've had it ceramic coated. So this is the standard D22 turbo. They're a bush bearing turbo and they're also internally wastegated. They're pretty tiny. So the turbo we're upgrading to is a Garrett GTX 2860 Gen 2. It's a ball bearing turbo. It's got billet compressor wheel on it. And main reason we went for this was just because the GTX series, they flow really well, but also the exhaust housings. This was the smallest one we could find with a V-band exhaust housing. Standard, I think Garrett only goes down to about a 0.62 for the exhaust, but we switched it up with a tile, and that one is a 0.52 for the exhaust housing, so it's a bit tighter to help it spool a bit sooner. This doesn't have a wastegate on it like standard, so we have to run an external wastegate. So we're using a Turbo Smart 40mm wastegate. It's got about a 15-pound spring in it at the moment. So this is the standard D22 downpipe. The downpipe's also got the catalytic converter incorporated into it. It's a really weird and not very good flowing shape because the standard manifold makes the turbo very close to the firewall, so it has this real weird shape to it and really doesn't flow well. So we had to make a new downpipe for it. So this is the downpipe. It's 3-inch. At the end it steps up to 3.5, and the rest of the exhaust steps up to 4-inch at the end. For the oil and water lines, we're using hard lines because the car is going to be eventually compound turbo. Everything's going to be really tight. So with hard lines, you can just bend it better and it'll stay the shape it is and it won't catch fire. This is the factory top mount intercooler. They're about 210 by 220 by 60. We've upgraded the intercooler to a front mount, and this one measures 600 by 370 by 70. And with the intercooler hoses, they're all aluminium pipes, and we've used Wigan clamps for them. This is the modified intake manifold we've had made up. It's a center feed manifold. The plenum's been reshaped to more evenly distribute the air across the cylinders, and the plenum's also larger capacity than standard. This is our upgraded radiator. It's split into two sections. This section here is for the engine, and this section down here is when we plan on using a water to air intercooler. So benefits over this is it's got twice the capacity of standard, and also the inlets and outlets, they're diagonal to each other. So standard from factory, they're on the same side, the inlets and outlets. That means that most of the hot coolant when it comes down just goes straight down to here, and then this side doesn't get as much. So by having them on a diagonal, it more effectively uses the entire area for cooling it. So we finally got all the bits fitted to the car. Quickly show you guys everything. I'll go and start her up for you guys so you can see how it sounds. Right, so we took out the car for a drive. Turns out that spring I put in it was actually only 10 pounds. So surprisingly, it actually wasn't that bad to drive with just the 10-pound spring in there. We don't have a boost gauge on it yet, so I'm not too sure exactly what it was making, but yeah, so we're just we've switched out the spring in it to the 25 psi spring instead. So we'll go take her for a quick little drive and take you guys along with us. Right, hope you guys like that video. In the next episode, we'll be adding a bunch of sensors. We're going to be adding intake air temp, exhaust gas temperature, air fuel ratio, just so we have all the numbers for when it gets tuned. So if you want to keep up to date with the build, subscribe.